Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And today I'm very pleased to introduce my guest, Stephen Chong. Hello, Stephen.
Anna, it's very good to be with you. Given the tyranny of distance, we're on opposite sides of the universe.
We really are, aren't we? Because you're in Queensland, I'm in London. So
Yeah,
very different. And yet, well, our interests bring us together. So
to be
that's
sure. Yes.
what drew my attention to you was your book because it's called The Afterlife, a journey to a journey to
Well, now you know what will happen, is the rest of it. So,
yes. um, so now so why is it important to ask what happens next? Here we are in this world. It's a perennial question, it must be said, as
mm,
probably as long as we have been able to think abstract thoughts, we have wondered, why are we here? What's it all
yeah.
about? And you and I were chatting just before I pressed the record button, and actually this is one of those times in history where I think many of us are asking, what's it all about? Even more so.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it interesting?
so why is it important to ask this question?
I've, Anna, I've got to tell you something really interesting. Just before we come on air, I was sitting here. I picked, because I had 10 minutes spare, I picked up a book, Man's Search for Meaning by Frankl. And as you do, I just opened up a page and I started to read. And I'll do my best to describe the beauty of what he said. He said it's not the best to ask the question of, well, what is the meaning of life? He said that's too general. He says, what is the meaning of the moment? What do you bring to this moment? The purpose you bring to this moment? And I actually, I mean, that's so profound, and it almost, it doesn't almost, it brings into total clarity the beauty of the moments that we have, whether they be difficult or otherwise. I mean, this one's really lovely, being talking to you, but it so focuses our attention on the importance of that moment that, to me, that kind of explains a lot.
Do you know, and he, of course, had such a terrible time.
Oh, yeah,
And I think that was his way of surviving, was by
yes,
focusing on the moment and asking, what can I bring to it? And I think that actually will define us all,
mm,
is what do we bring to each moment of our lives? And it puts me in mind of past life regressions, but also particularly um, people who've had near-death experiences,
mm,
and to go through this life review with
mm,
a guide or a member of a family, or in some cases they feel the presence of what we might call God with them, or an
yes,
ascended master as they go through. And they talk about how they see everything in slow motion from
yes,
every perspective. And so they are able to see every moment of their
mm-hmm,
life.
mm-hmm,
And I can remember several in which they talk about how they were surprised that their attention was drawn to moments that they had completely forgotten, in which they had performed very, to their minds, small acts of kindnesses,
isn't
which had
that interesting?
huge, something huge to the
Yes,
other person, and they had no idea. And
yes,
equally moments where they perhaps were not at their best. um,
yes,
and the impact that that might have had. And that those were the moments that stood out in their life reviews, and that their guides were drawing their attention to. So when you
yes,
talk about the importance of the moment and how we need to be asking, what am I bringing to this moment?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that sums it up absolutely.
It's so
Frankel,
profound. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes. And I've got to tell you something really interesting in the book, which we will no doubt discuss. But about it was about 3 months after I'd completed the writing process. And you know what it's like. I mean, you write this book and it come out in about 3 or 4 weeks, which is a journey of itself. But I'm I'll give you some background. The book is gestated from me falling off a roof and fracturing my neck. And I'm on a couch, good for nothing. I'm barely able to walk, almost spoon fed by my dear wife. But that's another story. But uh, after having written this book, and I've read it in review 100 times, and it's like pounding the little voices you get in your head. Stephen, you've missed something. You've missed something. What? Read it again. And so I did. And it was like, how do I describe reading the text with a highlighter pen? Somebody had highlighted these particular parts of the text. And what I found were these, and I called them the laws of heaven and earth. And I found 15 of them. And they're laws that are so profound that they, in the time since discovering these laws, my life has like changed completely. And I'll give you one apropos to what we've just spoken about, and I'll read it to you. It's law number 7 that says, in your life review, all shall be revealed. No thought or action insignificant, all remembered to record.
yeah.
Perfect
Nope.
description of that describes exactly what you're talking about.
As I say, no pressure, folks. Every moment, every
Every thought, yes.
thought. And I jokingly said no pressure because it's such a monumental, it can feel like a monumental burden to know that never mind every word or every deed, every thought, it counts.
Yes.
Like, huh, you know what? This was the bit of me that I thought might be allowed, to be the Wild West, Because nobody comes in there. Nobody comes in. So, I can mind my words, I can mind my deeds, but at least in my thoughts, I've got a little bit of
Your own.
yeah. No,
Yeah, yeah.
no,
But
no.
the interesting thing is, Anna, that that law particularly how profound it is. But I don't think we can look at it in isolation. And let me make sense of that with another law. What you have caused is law number 3. What you have caused to affect in your fellow man is what declares your place in heaven. We are all one in spirit. What you have done to another, you do to yourself. So if I look at you and know, if I do you harm with thought or deed or whatever, I'm doing it to myself. So if that doesn't turn one away from errant tasks, I don't know what will. And we carry that burden on into the next eternal life. And that's in some ways very beautiful, but it's also very scary to think if I do bad things to you, I bear the consequences of same. So,
It makes me think about, funnily enough, Harry Potter, and in fact, the last book, because there is this scene where Harry is, to all intents and purposes, dead, but he's having a near-death experience,
mm,
and he he meets Dumbledore, and the two of them are having a chat, and Harry can hear what sounds like a baby crying, and and it's very distressing.
Mm.
And they walk over to investigate, what's causing this sound. But it's not a baby at all. It's this shriveled up soul. It's shriveled up and it's clearly in agony and completely contorted and twisted. Everything that a soul should not be. And they work out that this is Voldemort's soul. And so, and the whole thing about this last book is that they discover, or Harry discovers, that Voldemort has been seeking eternal life. And he's been seeking it through murdering others, because every time he does that, his soul splinters. And as he splinters it, he then takes a bit of that soul and puts it into something that he believes to be indestructible, so that no matter what happens, there's always the chance that he'll be revived and resurrected. So this is what he's been up to. But he does it, of course. The great damage that he does to his soul is the murder of other people, the harm that he causes to others. And then there comes a point at which this is all that's left, is this contorted, hideous thing, crying in torment.
Yes.
I think this is what happens to us, actually. I think that's a fair description of the agony that we bring upon ourselves with every stabbing word or deed. And
with intent to harm.
With intent
yes.
to harm. And I think that the intention is everything. So, because the intention is the energy that drives the thought, that drives the action. Curses are thoughts, or thoughts can be curses. You can put it like that. But it's one thing when you are feeling afraid, or that fear translates into anger, and in a moment, you think something that's not particularly or you imagine somebody being blown up, because you're letting off steam in your head. But it's quite another, and that doesn't mean that there's no consequence to that, but it's quite another when it's actually an intentional, I want to do you harm and I wish it for you. So I think
like a curse or a spell or something. Yes, I understand. Yes. Yeah. Do you remember in the reading of The Afterlife where the main character, there was a big Colosseum? Do you remember that part?
No.
That pretty close to describes what we're talking about. So what I saw, for the benefit of your listeners, I saw, and I did my best to describe, is this huge Colosseum, like the Roman Colosseum type structure, and it's full of these beautiful souls, like a big auditorium, and all these magnificent colors, and they're all chanting the Om sound. So this energy is reverberating through the arena. And in the middle of the arena were these repose lounge chairs. And like I'm seeing through this main character's eyes what he's showing me, and I'm going, what the? and in walks these seraphim, and each of these little angelic beings has got a charge, perfectly described what she said. The soul is completely deformed and distorted, and like ill melodies. And each seraph guides their charge onto the and places them on these repose lounges. And the lounge kind of enfolds them in this beautiful, like a warm blanket on a cold night. And then in walks this magnificent angelic being, white, golden robes, majestic. And he stands in the middle of the arena and weaves takes the energy from the crowd, from these souls in the crowd, and it's like a spinning magnetic ball, like a disco ball kind of. Yeah. And out of this ball shone these laser lights into each of the souls on the lounges. And then the angelic being, like his job's done, he folds his hands back down and exits the arena. And each soul then rises up from the lounge and they're totally healed, perfectly formed. And like I'm seeing this and describing best I can and going, oh, wow. Wow, I couldn't make this up in 100 years, and this is what I saw. And then I asked this guide next to me. I said, "What is this?" And what was described is that sins in heaven imposed by others are not those borne by the self. So if I did bad things to you, that caused you a deformity, I gave you bad drugs or something or other, if I did real harm to you that caused your soul a deformity, you are relieved of those burdens. They are not yours to carry into the heavenly realms. Me, on the other hand, because I've been a naughty boy and I've done these things to you, I bear the consequences of those actions. But you, because you have not done this to yourself, it has been done unto you, and you are relieved of those terrible illnesses or burdens or sicknesses or whatever they are in the heavenly realm. So you do, but me, as I say, I bear the consequences because I've been a very naughty boy and done bad things with intent.
Tell us about how you've come about this book.
Well, I've got to tell you, Anna, what happened, it was about 2019. Now, as you can tell by my grey hair, I'm no longer young. And even though when you're over 60, you still think you're bulletproof. So I'm up on the roof, and where we are here in the rainforest, we're very remote, no near neighbours, and we're sort of elevated off the ground, and I'm up cleaning out the gutters. And the ladder slipped and fell and went through all these windows we've got, and I'm in a crumpled heap on the ground. And I couldn't feel below my neck. And I thought, oh, Stephen, you are in trouble. But as love would have it, my wife happened to be here this particular Saturday morning, and she normally isn't. She's off doing things. And she heard me scream, of course, and come to my rescue. But I got to tell you, the revelations for the book it did not occur at that time. In my period of rehabilitation, when I'm on the couch, as I described before, good for absolutely nothing, the title of this book is pounding in my head. And remember that prior to, just by way of background, I'd shut down on the writing process, said, I'm done. Prior to the accident, I'm finished. Leave me alone. I'm retiring, planting tomatoes in the garden. Let me be. The title is pounding away in my head. And eventually I said, okay, to the universe, you want me to write this thing? All right, I'm in. But the afterlife, what do I know? I know nothing. And so that burden of choice. So having then chosen that pathway, I when I was capable, I sat down to write again, and I had no storyboard, no characters, no nothing. I just sat. Oh, and I've got to tell you, it was amazing. As soon as I sat down, I saw the colours, the character, and I heard the music. I still hear it, and I I just wrote. I, I never knew where it was going. I I would write a piece and look at it in review and go, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And every time I sat, and mind you, this is over about 3 or 4 weeks. Every time I sat, the next part was there, and it was all a beautiful revelation.
So have you had any kind of mediumistic experience prior to this?
No, no.
No.
I feel very connected spiritually. Always have. And I've been gifted with a beautiful family that's, and loving and all the like. And I'm a very blessed man. But nothing as so profound as this. And I've got to tell you, the things I've learnt, if I had have learnt them when I was 26, not 66, that would have been a little bit, made life completely different. But hey, that's the way it goes.
Well, I think many of us feel like that. I sometimes think, all those years I wasted not knowing any of this.
Yeah, oh, they're not wasted, to be sure. They're
They're not
just they're our apprenticeship for our great things going forward.
indeed. So just want to bring you back to that notion then in the Colosseum. So the souls who were being healed were the souls that were souls in trouble.
Hmm. Hmm.
What role does repentance play in that
Oh, mm,
healing process? And I'll tell you why I'm asking. It's because for all the souls that seem to pass on and immediately go into light and who might be greeted by loved ones or guides, there do seem to be some who hang about, either because they don't know to look for the light,
hmm,
and that does seem to happen. I think people's belief systems can trap them.
yes.
Uh, so they don't know to look for the light, or in some cases, they have no interest in moving forward.
Mm.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, what is it that determines when that healing process is going to happen? Is it a moment where a soul says, I'm ready to face what I've done?
Yes. Yes. You've described it perfectly. That's my complete understanding. And it relates again to one of the laws that I discovered. And let me read it to you again, if you don't mind. It says, it's law number 8. Forgiveness is at the heart of your ultimate realization. So forgiveness is the key. And let me describe to you and your listeners one of the very profound places that I was taken to. Scary but profound. um, with a guide, and again, I'm seeing through this character's eyes. And with the guide, we go through this. Oh, it's like not a desert, but where a bushfire's gone through. It's burnt, and the cinder and the smell of that burnt ashes and things. And I'm thinking, whoa, this is trying to describe this, and it wasn't pleasant. And we entered this huge portal, this doorway, and inside were these huge vortices of power, and standing around each of these vortices were these beautiful angelic beings. But it was a horrible place, and in each vortex were these souls, and they were trapped, and some of them were trying to clamber out. Oh, incredible. And what I understand, this place, I call it the nether regions, and it is not God's judgment. This is not hell on earth where God in his hellfire condemns you to these terrible places. That doesn't exist. That's a fallacy. But souls were entrapped by their own choice. Think of the 7 deadly sins: gluttony, wrath, anger, sloth, and I can't remember the others. Souls are entrapped by their own choice.
Despair,
yes,
the 7 deadly sins, and I think despair probably brings many souls to that point.
yes, absolutely. But get back to your very valid point. As soon as that soul, or as soon as a soul is able to repent, they are contrite to say, I'm sorry for what I have done. That's why the angelic beings are there, to wait for them to repent, and then they're taken away in loving hands. And I didn't see where I saw some being taken away. I don't know where they went, but that's what I saw. So as soon as a soul is able to repent, or is contrite to say, I'm sorry, please, for what I've done, that's the key that opens the door that releases them from this terrible type of purgatory.
And you can see how that is the case. I once heard a lecture by Jordan Peterson in which he was talking about PTSD as experienced by Vietnam servicemen, ex-servicemen who'd served in Vietnam. And he was talking about how, in his experience, and it's on a record as being the case, we assume that PTSD is because of everything they have witnessed. But he said, actually, the worst cases of PTSD is not because of what they witnessed, it's because of what they had done themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we also know that perpetrators of crimes, abusers, are very adept at blaming the victims
Mm-hmm.
of their abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's done research into pedophilia, etc., can see that they feel fully justified in their actions and will want to normalize their actions.
Yes.
By either blaming the victim or saying the victim wanted what happens to them to happen.
Yes.
And so we can take it for the extremes of hideous abuse. But we can take that in everyday life, because shame and guilt, I always feel as a therapist, are the most corrosive of emotions.
Yes.
Until we are able to face up to our own misdeeds, what we're doing is we're hiding from ourselves. And as we hide from ourselves, we're excusing ourselves, wanting to make excuses for what we've, when we know that what we've done is wrong.
Yes.
It's
yes,
very
absolutely.
hard nature, because the pain of knowing we've done something wrong is so huge, we would rather blame the other person.
Mm.
It's part of human nature. So that energy continues after we have died. If we're carrying that, it continues until the moment when we have enough courage, or we have suffered so much through that corruption of
Yes.
guilt, shame, that
Yes.
we're going to say, right, I'm ready to face what I've done now, because
Yes.
even that's going to be better than staying trapped here.
Yes. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and that's the thing, isn't it? It strikes me that sometimes we don't learn very quickly.
Yes. What you say, Anna, is very profound, and it dovetails exactly with the story that I was given, and the character whose name is Athar. Just again for your listeners, in life he was abused as a child under the care and the auspices of the clergy, and later on in his life he took his own life. So he is stuck in this purgatory by virtue of the shame and the guilt and the anger that he felt. And he couldn't see the light that was there waiting for him, the beautiful angelic light, but he couldn't see it because, he was masked by all this shame and guilt. And it was not until he was able to forgive those himself and those that perpetrated these heinous acts that released him from this purgatorial state and opened up the doorway into the heavenly realms. And it's from there he took me on this journey to show me all the different levels of the heavenly realms. But his forgiveness was the key that opened that door.
So I think perhaps we need to clarify a couple of things. Firstly, when we're talking about forgiveness, we're not talking about condoning and absolving. That's
No,
not, and we don't have the power to do that anyway.
no.
But what we are saying is, I recognize what you did to me. It was an abomination what you did to me.
Mm-hmm.
But from this moment forward, I'm going to let go of all the anger and resentment so that I can be free of what you did to me. And that's what we mean by forgiveness, which is really important. And I think the other thing is, and this I see in my work, forgiving the other is important, but the most important thing is to forgive ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when people have experienced abuse, very often they are angry with themselves for being vulnerable, for being weak, for being powerless, for not having stood up, for any number of reasons, for feeling like they allowed it to happen.
Yes. Yes.
So forgiveness of ourselves is really important. And we need to come to that. We need humility to understand that we are not all powerful, and that sometimes bad things do happen. And that it's not our fault.
No, it's not.
There are times when things do happen that are not our fault, and we need to be able to forgive ourselves for that we couldn't stop it. And that goes with the pain of others and not being able to stop that either.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting, again, to me, it leads back to a couple of these laws again, which, and one particular, and I'll read it to you again. Law number 12, to know that you are sacred is not to see new things in you, but to see yourself as you really are.
I love
that. Isn't it beautiful?
I absolutely love
that. And that forgiveness turns that key to say, yes, none of us are perfect. We've all tripped over our own size 10s. and made boo-boos, but you and I were beautiful human beings at our core. And what we also know is that we are never, never without the love of the Father. So that guiding light, that love is always there. That light is always there, never absent. So knowing that we are this special divine teardrop from the eye of the Father uh, enables us, to my way of thinking, says, okay, yes, I tripped up. Yeah, I did some bad, but I'm still a beauty. You know, I'm a beautiful human being. Yeah.
I think we perhaps ought to address the fact that when we're talking about Father, this is a habitual use of language, and it in no means excludes. We do not intend to exclude the feminine energy,
No,
because
absolutely.
this is a concept. The concept of God is so beyond our human comprehension that in time we have needed to use human terms to actually have a relationship with it.
With our,
But
yes,
we understand that this is an all-encompassing energy, and therefore, if it is an all-encompassing energy, it means it incorporates masculine and feminine energy.
yes,
Therefore, we could say the love of the parent,
yes,
the love of the father, mother, all in one, because that
yes,
is what we mean. So to reassure our audience who may have been somewhat concerned over
yes. The use
the
of
selective
them.
use of one gender over another. This is not what
Yeah,
intended.
yeah, absolutely. Limitations of language, and um, how we maybe we just let's call him or her God, whatever we call it. We understand the
Yeah.
direction.
Well, Stephen, your book is so inspiring and so beautiful. And I just want to remind everyone that I'm going to be putting a link to it in the description box. And let's find out how people can learn more about you.
Oh, and probably the easiest way is via the website, uh, www.stephen with a ph stephenchong.com.au. And I must say, and I was thinking about it this afternoon, if your listeners would like to receive a copy of these laws of heaven and earth, I'm happy to send it to them. No, I mean free. No, it doesn't matter. Just send me your email, get on the website, send me one of those contact formy things, and I'm happy to send them a copy of the laws of heaven and earth.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that is a tremendous gift. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Oh, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
I could speak to you for hours, so I suspect you might yet be back.
Well, if we can navigate the time difference, it's all good. It'll be a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be looking at communicating with birds. Until then, goodbye.